Hi there, it's Scott Parker. We're going to discuss text styles and dimension styles in AutoCAD 2016 for the Mac. Here we have our format menu. We're going to pull down to text styles, and we have two different styles sitting here that are original to a blank document. I'm going to add a new one. We're going to base our text styles on the Drafting for Theater book by Dennis Dorn and Mark Shanda, and here I have a screenshot or picture copy of their letter sizes: 1/8 inch for notes and dimensions, 3/16 for scenic units and plate titles, and 1/4 inch for show titles. So I'm going to make those dimensions in my text styles. So I hit here the plus sign, and I'm going to name this notes and dimensions. I'm going to choose Architect's Daughter because it gives you a little bit of a handwriting flair, and that's what I like. And the dimensions notes and such is 1/8 of an inch right there. So I have it already set from 1/8 to 1/8 an inch, and I click apply. I'm going to hit another one, and this one we're going to call Scenic Units and Plate Titles. Okay. There we go. And that one wants to be 3/16. So 3/16. Apply. Yep, so went to 1/4 inch. Okay, what this tells me is that my units, let me get out of this for a second, format units, my precision is to 1/8 inch, so it's only going to give me every 1/8 inch, so I've got to change it to 1/16. There we go, format text, and now I can change this to 3/16. Apply, and now it kept it. The next one is going to be for show titles, and that one is 1/4 of an inch. Apply. There we go. So now I have my three different text styles, and I'm going to put in a note around this flat. So here on our tool palettes, we have these different tools. There's the drafting ones that we use to draft this flat, and we go down to annotation, and I have some letters here that is the textile M text. I'm going to draw a box here. It gives me this nice long line of type to be able to type in, and it gives me this formatting bar at the top. So I don't want show titles. I'm going to change it to notes. Actually, scenic units, because this is a flat, and we're going to do this is a rear view, and hit save. Oh, look how tiny that is. Okay, so what has happened here is that in this is 3/16, and for real that's 3/16 because it's in full scale. So obviously we can't, when we look at this in paper space, let's take a look at this in paper space for a second. Our layout here, it's going to be tiny. So we want it to print out at 3/16, which means we need to do a little bit of math. So if we want these letters to be 3/16 in the printout, and I plan on printing my drawings out in 1/2 inch scale, it means that this is going to want to be 3/16 on this page. So in our model space, so to make this work, we're going to have to change our text style and make that letter 4 inches high. So here's this one. Double click on that. 4 inches. Apply. Close. Now when I choose my tool, and I go to my scenic units, 4 inches, rear view, oops. Save. That looks much more like it. Now you see how it did a carriage return, so we're going to grab this and just make it a bit wider and then move it over so it's centered. Now if we want it underlined, that's pretty easy. We could either draw a line or simply open it up and hit underline. And if we want it centered, hit over here, alignment. There we go. Save. And now we can move it where we want. Under our flat. Now let's take a look and see what it would look like printed out. There we go. That's exactly what we wanted to do. Okay, back to model space. Now we're going to add some dimensions. And the dimensions are in 1/8 inch. So we need to do the same thing to our textile for the dimensions. And instead of being an 1/8 inch, in 1/2 inch scale, it would need to be 3 inches tall to be 1/8 of an inch once we want to print it. So I'm going to close. But here we're going to get into dealing with our dimension style. And we're going to make a new one. And we're going to look at these dimension styles here from the same book. And we're going to see that we want an arrow to go into that. That little dot there is for tight spots, or a tick mark, or an arrow. These are different arrowhead types, so we're going to change these arrowheads and make sure we match. And we're going to use new dimension styles. So we're going to hit new. I'm going to use my initials for this one. All right. Continue. Here we go. First thing, unit format, change to architectural. All right. Lines. I'll show you a graphic that I've drawn so we know which lines are for what. Here we have, this is for this line here. Extension lines are these small ones here. The extend beyond dimension lines is for up here, and the offset is how much space between the dimension line and your object is there. So here I'm going to leave the colors the same. I am going to extend the offset a bit more than that because it'll almost look like it's touching it, so I'm going to make it 3 inches. I'm going to leave that where it is. Symbols, I'm going to change these to architectural ticks. Text, I'm going to choose the text style of notes and dimensions. All right. We're going to leave these the same. You can play with these on your own and such. Our precision is 1/16. And there we go. Okay, and close. So to add a dimension to these flats, because obviously we have to dimension them, we're going to use here the linear dimension tool. Click up here in the corner. My snap to object is on. Pull that out, and it's 8 feet tall. Hit the space bar to repeat the command. 4 feet wide. Right. Let's dimension this corner block. Space bar to repeat the command. I'm snapping to the grid, so let's turn that off for the moment. So we just snap to the corner block itself. There we go. Fit that right in here. And we need to dimension that this is a 3/4 of an inch away from the edge. There we go. Let's dimension that this is 4 feet to the center. right to the center of our toggle. And we now have basically all of our dimensions that we need. See what that looks like in paper space. And that's how it would print out. So we've covered dimensions and we've covered texts. So let's say we wanted to put a little note on the paper itself. If I click here and I go to Annotation, I'm going to start my box and I'm going to tell it that I want to put a scenic notes and dimensions note here. Look how huge this is. This is 3 inches. Actually, I think it's 4 inches tall. 4 inches tall. Well, that's obviously way too tall. So that's not going to work out for us. Now, why did that happen? Well, it's because we're on the paper space and we just put in 3 inch tall letters. So what we need to do, so I'm going to hit Escape. Now we tell it not to save that. Hit Zoom All. Is we need to make another textile, but tell it that it's an annotation textile. So textiles, scenic units, I'm going to add a new one. Units and plate titles. But this one, I'm going to start this with an A. I'm just going to put an A in front so I know it's for annotation. It'll also sort better. And this time, because I want these letters to literally be 3/16, I'm going to type into this window 3/16. There's 3/16, and I'm going to tell it there's annotation. That's what this little triangle here is for, like a scale ruler. Apply, close. So now when I do a text here, and I choose the annotation one, this is 3/16 tall. Save. We see here that these are the same height. Let's underline them so they look the same. Snapping to the flat. So these are both the same size. This one is 3 inches tall, but it's scaled because it's in scale, and this one is 3/16 inch tall. This one might be 4 inches tall. So that is that's the difference between the text for one or for the other. Same thing has to happen with the titles. In this case, textile, my show titles is already 1/4 inch tall, so I'm just going to change that to annotation so that it works in the annotation fields. And I'm going to put an A in front of it so it sorts at the beginning. So now I can give this drawing a title down here. Show titles, 1/4 inch, flat, drawing. Save. So this down here is the starting of a title block. Go back to our drawing and you'll notice that these annotations are not in the drawing. Only these are in the drawing. Let's look at something else in the paper space, which can be awfully handy. I can do dimensions in this as well. Let's do a dimension here. I'll dimension the bottom. But look at the size of that letter. That's because the text is using the scale version of the text style. Okay. So we're going to choose that. We'll scroll down and change the dimension style. Well, the dimension style is accurate. We're going to change it to annotative. Now it fits. So let's move it down a little bit. But look, the annotative style is not in architectural, so we need to change that as well. So let's go to our format, textile. The same thing happens here. Sorry, not textile, dimension style. Format, dimension style. The same thing happens here. This is annotative. We changed the one and made it custom. This is the one that's still in that other format. So I'm going to go here and modify, change my units to architectural, and otherwise everything else could probably stay the same. Okay, though I'm going to change this to tick marks. These guys I'm going to leave just like that. Primary units, I like the fractions to be diagonal. There we go, close, and now it's changed it to match. But look how thick this one is compared to these guys. These are all adjustments to your settings in order to fix that. Now why don't we just do all the dimensions in this mode? Well, this is why. I'll show you. If we double click on the drawing, it takes us into model space temporarily, and we can do our navigation. When I change our view, all the dimensions that are built into the model space that we were using before, these dimensions here, notice it's missing that new one that's at the bottom, these dimensions here will stay accurate. And this dimension that we've just added will not. Watch this. All right. We have the different views. Here, this 4 feet is still 4 feet. This one here is changed to 2 feet, 9 and 15/16 of an inch because it's a linear dimension based on these 2 points. It doesn't care that it's rotated, it's changed. These stay with the rotation. So I highly recommend always doing your measuring, unless it's a really quick drawing, always doing your dimensions in the model space attached to your object, because then they'll always change with the object. Thanks for watching.